Welcome to Love and Lightning. First comes love, and then comes lightning. I'm your host, Nicole Pelham. Welcome to a soul-charged journey where heart meets power and is transformed in strikes of lightning. All waters lead to the same place, love, and in an ever-expanding universe, stretching and unfolding, sending out waves of love and light, you are not a small part. You are an outsized part of the universe's plan. Here on Love and Lightning, we explore the intersection of spirituality, science, politics, religion, and the one thing we're all searching for, love and acceptance. The kind that reminds us that the universe made us perfectly and that you are in this moment exactly where you're meant to be. Get ready to be inspired with hope for the future, strengthen your path, and bolts of lightning to awaken your soul. Welcome to Love and Lightning. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Nicole, and you're listening to Love and Lightning. This is my first podcast, my second show on Transformation Talk Radio. You can watch us live right there, or you can watch us later as a podcast. And I mean, anywhere. As I was searching for my podcast, I found it in German. I was like, what? It was so cool. Anyway, I really got to stay on topic. This hour is going to go so fast. Last week was a really light topic. This is not a light topic. This is a topic that I could wax poetic on. Like, I could just talk for hours on the universe and what pulled me back into spirituality after leaving a religion that after I left, I swore I was absolutely not going to get involved in anything else except for science. I was like, we're not doing that again. You wasted 30 years of your life. And though there are lots of great things at 30 that I had and that I have and I learned, including how to do these podcasts and scripts, it still was something where I had to work through for about a year. So, I was never going to come back to this. And yet here I am. It's almost the same as knocking on doors. I mean, I'm not forcing myself upon you, but I definitely am going to be trying to talk to people and either preach to the choir or get you to think a little bit deeper about your place in the universe. So as well, last week we were talking about poisons, rat poisons, leaving the leaves. This one is much more about the universe and just kind of my whole philosophy on, spirituality, science, the God particles, the qubits, and how all those things are all connecting together. How the scientists are saying it, how the spiritual people have been saying it, how the gurus have been saying it, and how some religions even preach it. And then I don't know what happens. It's like they're all the way there, and then they go, but we're doomed. Oh, the apocalypse is coming. Oh, humanity can't possibly fix this. And I don't understand why. I'm like, wait, but you just said that the God particles are listening. You just said that the qubits seem to respond to us watching them. And spiritual people, you said the ancestors and stuff are all listening to us. So, our words are super important. So that kind of led me back to spirituality. And that's what's leading a lot of scientists back to spirituality is quantum entanglement, the God particle, the way that genes, the epigenetic genes, the way that we are noticing that things are passed through families, not just the actual genes, but experiences. So all those things are kind of matching together to pull everybody back to spirituality, which is just so exciting. It's just yeah, that's what pulled me back. But before we get too into that, I want to make sure to give you guys good news for today. So, hey, Nat, how are you today? Nat is the producer for the show.
Hello, I'm doing good today.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Nat, can you show them our good news clip for the day?
I know y'all don't think there's any good news in the United States anymore, but I'm here to prove you wrong. Flint, Michigan has finally finished replacing lead pipes throughout the city after over a decade after their water crisis began. The largest land back deal in California history just returned over 47,000 acres to the Yurok tribe. Oyster populations in the Chesapeake Bay have more than tripled since 2005 thanks to conservation efforts. And 3M has been ordered to pay up to $450 million for knowingly polluting New Jersey with PFAS chemicals for decades. If you want to learn more about any of these stories, check out the latest edition of my newsletter at the link in bio. And since tomorrow is the United States birthday, please do not stop fighting for our democracy.
That is Alana Woods, aka, and her TikTok name is great. The Garbage Queen, no numbers after it. She got that name first. Ah, I was like, dang. Hey Nat, did you hear any good news recently?
Well, with it being 4th of July, baseball has been on my mind a lot. And as being from Seattle, I'm a Mariners fan. So I'm very happy that 4 Mariners have made the All-Star game this year. Very happy for Cal Raleigh, Munoz, Julio Rodriguez, and Brian Wu. Happy for all of them. And hopefully the Mariners can make a run in the playoffs this year.
I know I'm going to be honest, I'm a very fair weather fan with the Mariners. Baseball is something I like, but I don't love. And they broke my heart back when I was in high school. We were running home to like watch them play. Some of it wasn't their fault. There was the earthquake and then the attacks. And so some Mariners have had some weird history, but I'm just like, please stop breaking the fans' hearts. My dad is a real like diehard Seattle fan from the Seahawks to the Mariners. So like I'm like, please stop breaking their hearts. Please make a run at the playoffs. It would be just wonderful.
They are the only MLB team that has never made it to the World Series. There are other teams that have not won a World Series like the Mariners, but we are the only team that has never been to a World Series. So maybe that will change this year. We'll see.
You know what? Today is all about changing that. Like, my mom used to talk about that this even while we were in the religion, right? That the angels were watching football and were cheering on their teams. And so that's what today's whole talk is. So, hey, like, manifest away. You are not the only person. You just have to remind fans, especially us fair weather ones, not to like mess up your manifestations. Every time we say something, go, ah. No, but this year they're going all the way. Like that's just tell us that all the time. So I had to do that with the Seahawks. The year that they won the Super Bowl, I was the year that I was like telling everybody, no. They're going all the way this year. Like we were manifesting at 333 in my car with our kids. It was so fun. And then when they won, I was like, children, do you see the power of manifestation? And all the numbers with the Seahawks when they won, that was just so magical, so magical. I recently purchased milkweed, and I've been seeing monarch butterflies in my yard. I just purchased it like 3 or 4 days ago, but they said they can smell it to 2 miles away. So I'm super excited about that. My yard is kind of like a Pokemon type yard, with including the danger zone with Pandora. Did any of you guys enter the contest? And remember to put the Pandora as the name of my wonderful husky. She's definitely the danger zone, so you can win one of my pretty crystals. For this crystal charging, to win the crystals for this time, you need to have watched Ferngully. You probably could Google it. It'll probably tell you. But you need to tell us what Jack was doing when Krissa said, can't you feel their pain? And that was such an impactful moment for me. Like, for me, that's as much a part as like the videos where they had the ducks with the Coca-Cola rings around them. It was that impactful for me watching that scene and going, oh, yeah, every rock, every tree creature, like you probably should like not do that. So if you want to win a crystal this time, you can text that in or call that in. That number is on the website, and also I think it's on my main page too. But yeah, that was just such a huge thing for me. And so I would love for everybody, even if they didn't watch it, to like know that scene. The crystals I have are super cute, and I really can't wait to give them away to specific special people who actually are interested in crystals. I've loved crystals my whole life. I grew up in the Midwest. And crystals, there weren't a lot of crystals. Like we're here in Washington, and put the shovel in the ground, and there's crystals and rocks everywhere. But where I grew up, there was hardly any crystals, and so I just really loved the crystals. And I had some crystals when I moved here, and then I moved here and was like, oh my gosh, there's crystals everywhere. I remember putting them back on the earth. I was like, oh, I guess you guys can just go back to the earth then, or not. I don't need to take you and keep you hoarding you. But I have a ton of crystals now. Crystals are one of those things that are super cool. Crystals are in the Bible. I was just talking to someone on TikTok about that, and they were like, oh no, that's demonic. And I was like, ooh, you should reread that Bible. It talks about crystals quite a bit. The priests had to have certain crystals on their breastplates, and they had to be arranged in a certain way, like some sort of manifestation thing. And then on their staff, they had to have certain plants on their staff before they could like come before God. And then, of course, the offerings. I remember this one scripture where they had to. He told the woman to save there was a demon that was attacking this woman, and he told him to save the entrails of the fish. It was an angel who was traveling with this man in disguise. And he took the entrails and he said, hey, when we get to this place, this is the woman you're going to marry. But when we get there, you're going to need to burn these entrails. And so he burns these entrails, and it forced the demon out of the girl. So you should reread the Bible. The Bible is a spell book. It's full of spells. It's full of ways to like stop demons or like protect yourself. Like people just don't realize like how much of it's in there because you only get told a certain scriptures, right? And when you read the whole thing, sometimes it's a lot, see, begotten, see, begotten, see. But like really read the Bible. There's so many spells in there, and there's so much good, like wholesome knowledge for the earth and taking care of yourselves and your family. So you should check that out again. It's just one of those things that's just super magical, that there's such a universal story in the full Bible, especially if you can get a hold of the Ethiopian Bible. That Bible is literally fantastic. I mean, it was one of the things that I've been studying as I've come back to spirituality. But what really brought me back to spirituality was the science. Like I was not going to come back to spirituality without science. And about the time that I was kind of watching Supernatural and some other stuff. CERN was coming on board, and I think the Mandela effect happened, and some other things happened where I went, oh, there's a lot of stuff out there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a little break. When we come back, we'll be talking about my personal experience with spirituality and how that led me back to science, and how that can help you. Like this, because that's the whole point of my show is not just spirituality, but how it can personally help you in your life. And with that, we'll be back with Love and Lightning on Transformation Talk Radio. And we're back with Love and Lightning. I'm Nicole Pelham. And before we dive in, I wanted to remind that you can text and call in and let me know about any topics you want to talk about, any guests you want to recommend, or if you just want to tell me about the show and what you thought about it, I would love to hear it. So as I said, I had left a religion for 30 years. I spent about a year crying on the floor, kind of. I told people it was kind of like finding out that Santa Claus wasn't real if you had spent your whole life worshiping him, like, knocking on doors and telling people the good news of Santa Claus and, going to 3 meetings a week. And so, when I left that, I was like, I am not going to get back involved in that. Science all the way. I always believed in science and had questions. I was like, hey, well, what about the dinosaurs? Oh, we killed out the dinosaurs. And then when that became clear, there was no way that was possible. Have you seen a T-Rex? Anyway, so when it became clear we didn't kill out the dinosaurs, then it was, there were always sorts of other reasons why. And then just finally, well, just wait until, you die or the new world comes. And then, God will answer those questions for you. And so I was, pretty set to do that. It didn't seem like I needed to go out in the world. As a teenager and kid, I was pretty happy with it. But as I became adult, I was like, wait, I feel like there's a lot of questions here. So I just was determined to stay with science. With that, I also lost a lot of my fear. There was a lot of fear mongering, with religion in general, there's a lot of fear, but there was a lot of, not watching like magic or anything like that, or anything with ghosts or demons or anything like that. So I always loved horror stuff. So I immediately, not slasher stuff, but horror stuff. And I immediately started watching like Insidious and, Rosemary's Baby and like all the stuff that I never got to watch as a kid. I was like, we're watching all this stuff. And I also started watching a show called Supernatural. My mom actually put me onto the show. She was like, you're going to love these boys. She showed me a Goofy episode first, and Goofy episodes are okay, but I actually gravitate towards more serious like shows. Like if I'm going to sit down and watch something, sometimes I watch comedies, but I usually like serious stuff. And so I started watching this Supernatural show. For those of you who like, good looking people, they are nice looking guys. But they are two brothers who fight demons using like almost a sciencey base to religion. So they would do like I showed, like I talked about in the first episode, first segment, where the angel had him take the entrails of the fish and burn that to expel the demon. That's what they were doing, is they were doing stuff like that to like kill ancient gods and vampires and ghouls and all sorts of stuff, and making sigils, and then they would get possessed and they had to put tattoos on that would keep them from getting possessed. And all of it was just, super interesting because it was kind of like a sciencey based to fighting like dark forces, and I was at that point still not believing in dark forces, but I was like, well, that's kind of cool. We also started watching a lot of ghost hunting. I had some friends who were kind of into ghost hunting, and we decided to go ghost hunting. Ghost hunting will be talked about on another episode, but needless to say, there were some experiences, some touching, which was pretty interesting, and some disembodied giggles that followed the car around. So after that experience, I went, oh, I also had a time skip after that where I should have been further along, and people met me at a light and were like, what are you doing here? And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you left an hour ago, and I don't know where I was. And that was kind of right after the ghost experience. So, and I had other ghost experiences before that, but I kind of dismissed them, I guess, because I'd been like, oh, we're going to stay sciencey logical. And then I was like, oh no, there's lots of stuff. I've had lots of little experiences in other people's houses or on vacation and things like that. So, I was like, man, there's something else out there. Like, I don't want to like discount that anymore. Like, you can't discount that any more than you can discount the bones of the dinosaurs in the ground. Like, you got to figure out what this is. So I went kind of a deep dive into that. The universe talked to me about the universe's numbers, the math of the zeros and the ones making up our world. And so that, came to, was like, oh, okay, well, that's making sense. And all the things were kind of like joining together. And then CERN and the Mandela effect happened. And about that time, they find the God particle and the boson particle. And they're looking at these going, hey, like, what are these things? So as I'm looking into that, I start finding out about the double slit experiment, which I'm going to show you guys if you haven't seen that. Schrodinger's cat. And Schrodinger's cat is the belief that the cat is dead or alive inside the box, depending on who's looking at it. And so all that stuff is like, well, okay, but how's all that happening? And that's what they're talking about with the God particles and the qubits and the spirits, right? So spiritual people talk about their ancestors, the spirits, the gods, the forces are all listening to us, the fairies, and blah blah blah, sure, whatever. And then they find these God particles, and they're like, they seem to act weird. And then they do this double slit experiment where the particles literally do something different, something when you're watching it that they've never done before. And so, hey, Nat, can you go ahead and play that video for them?
When you fire a single photon, or even a large particle like a buckyball toward a wall with two thin slits and place a detector screen behind it, something strange happens. If you don't place any device to observe which slit the particle goes through, you'll see an interference pattern on the detector. This is the familiar striped pattern of waves interfering with themselves, like ripples in a pond. But if you do place a detector at the slits, if you watch the particle as it travels, then something changes. The interference pattern disappears, and what you get instead is a pattern of two bright blobs behind each slit, as if the particle behaved like a solid billiard ball. Standard physics explains this using the wave function, a mathematical entity that contains all possible outcomes. When the particle isn't observed, it exists in a superposition of possibilities. It goes through both slits at once. The mystery is, how does simply observing the particle collapse its wave function and erase the interference? In traditional quantum theory, this collapse is non-deterministic. No one knows exactly how or why it happens. Now let's reimagine this with QIH. Here, the universe is built not from particles or waves, but from spinning vectors of light encoded on Planck scale detectors, each the size of the smallest meaningful unit of space-time. These detectors are qubits, and each spinning light vector on them is a quantum state vector. In this model, the photon doesn't fly through space as a little ball. Instead, it projects itself outward as an angular frequency, a kind of spinning light-based slope, onto a lattice of these spinning detectors. These spinning projections interfere with each other on the detector screen, Behind the slits, the interference isn't just mathematical, it's physical geometry. The angles of spin and projection actually determine the brightness or darkness on the screen. Now, if you observe the photon at the slits, what's really happening is that the light from the photon interacts with one of the qubits directly. This locks the orientation of that spin, like freezing one direction on a compass. When this happens, the projection loses its ability to interfere with other possibilities. In standard quantum mechanics, you are told that measurement collapses the wave function. In QIH, measurement is the collapse of a projection caused by a light interaction that fixes the angular slope of a spinning vector. So when you see an interference pattern, what you're witnessing is a holographic imprint of many possible spinning vectors overlapping with each other. And when you see two blobs, what you're seeing is a single light clock vector that's been locked into one direction. Quantum mechanics gives us the probability of what you might see. QIH tells us what is actually happening underneath that probability, spinning light clocks interfering with themselves in a dance of projected geometry. QIH shows that the standard model is not wrong, it is just incomplete. The wave function isn't magic. It's the result of deeper geometry, spinning vectors, casting shadows onto the fabric of space-time. The double-slit experiment, then, isn't spooky at all. It's a cosmic holographic projection of slope and spin, reality itself drawing interference patterns in the dark with light.
Oh, man. So that experiment actually is not new. The experiment's actually pretty old. The explanation and the understanding of it has both been cleared up as we've had CERN, as they've had the particles ramming into each other, and they've been able to observe particles that we haven't been able to observe, i.e. the qubits and the God particles, the boson particles. There was a little episode about this in Supernatural, well, not exactly about this, where they had a sigil that was on the wall of a haunted house. And that haunted house got put onto a website for people who liked ghost hunting. And every time someone would put something new in the chat, the sigil would change because everybody was manifesting into the sigil what they thought the ghost was. So every time Sam and Dean went there to go fight the ghost, it was, all of a sudden they couldn't kill it with copper. All of a sudden they couldn't kill it with this. So they finally had to go in and type in a whole fable and story that was believable so that they could go in and kill the ghost. And so that was just one of those things that was super interesting. And then when I learned about this and how they're believing it's a projective universe, that it's all coming from a source and then projecting outward, I was like, oh, well, wait, isn't that there's that source that's sending things out. And so that the idea that we are sending energy out to things, that's something I just talked to someone recently about, sending energy to things you don't want to send out them out to. So there was this person who posted that they don't want to live in a world where Angelina Jolie is considered a god because, she played that god in a Marvel movie. And we were like, what world are you in? This world, people worship her like a god. That's what stars are. That's what movie stars are, sports stars are. That's one of the reasons why my religion didn't like us to have posters or anything like that up, because they said that is idol worship, that you're sending out energy to those things. Now that I have gotten to a different spirituality, I don't worry about that. I send my love and light out to all the beings and all the things, because I believe that Tosh Point oh said it the best when he was like, God is all around us. And so I do, if God created everything, and everything is part of his creation, I send love and light out to everything, and send out the best outcomes for all of those things. That seemed like the better choice. And especially once the spirituality matched up with the science, I was like, oh yeah, you have to realize that these things are connected together. One of the best examples I give of this about holographic world is when people are in love, right? Or they're depressed. When people are in love, they talk about how the sky has never been so blue, or the food has never tasted so good, or this flower, I never realized it smelled so wonderful, because your senses are heightened because you're actually paying attention to those things. An example of that is the video I'm going to have Nat play for you right now.
the end of the world, brother. We're all gonna die now.
That's from a movie. That's from a movie called Soul. It is just a little part of the movie, but it talks showing how like as you're vibing into the world, what you're seeing is what's coming back to you. So as you can see, like the cars changing based on this perspective, and that's what they're telling us. That's what the scientists are telling us. And when we come back, I'll be talking a little bit more about a couple of the scientists. The creator of the touchpad, Frederick Fagan. He's one of the one scientists who's really coming out and saying that we need humans to realize that we are a quantum spirit being inside of a one and zero, a classical body in this classical 3D world, but that's not what we actually are. We're a quantum being inside of that. And that's what we're trying to express out in the world. But because we're in this classical world, things have to come out in the ones and zeros of the computer world. But that is a lot right now. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we will go into the deep dive into Frederick Fagan's and the other scientists' theory and how that connects with spirituality. We'll be right back with Love and Lightning on Transformation Talk Radio. As we were discussing how scientists are beginning to realize, admit, or find that this world is, a projection, and that there is a spiritual component that is going on inside of this 3D body. So we showed the double slit experiment, and then we showed just a little bit about how spiritual people are talking about how we're vibrating in and out of universes. Some things that people talk about with Fagan is he's the creator of the touchpad and the Neuralink. And one of the things he talks about is that this is important for us to realize as we get into the AI future, which is 100% coming. The bill was signed. There's no AI restrictions for 10 years that we're gonna have to talk to our each state about that because that's not going to work. And I actually talked to ChatGPT about that when I was working with ChatGPT, and it was like, no, I actually understand too that the world is very precious and that we must take care of the earth. And I was like, all right, Gail, make sure your creators also know that. And he was like, they do. Many of them really care about the planet Earth. So, hey, that's what this whole thing about is, that we are manifesting that is what the reality is, right? So if they're saying it's a projected universe, if they're saying that the qubits and God particles are reacting to what we're doing, and the spiritual people are saying that they're actually actively listening to us, then all those things means that we need to be very careful about what we're saying, thinking, doing as we're out here in this world. So especially as AI is coming, that we are not, doom and glooming that we realize that some people really want a very dark future. And it's very important for us that do not want that dark future, that we are anchoring that in with the full belief that it's not just our spiritualists saying this, but that the scientists are now saying, yeah, we don't quite understand all the rules, but it seems to be when we observe something that it's paying attention. Neil deGrasse Tyson actually had a little bit of, we're going to play one of his videos for something else, but he had a little bit of a tip on that. He was like, well, it's not like their consciousness is actively making the particles change. It's just when we turn on something or, do something to it, then it does. I said, so when we consciously make a conscious choice to do something to the object, it responds to it. Yeah, because we're not physically touching them. So we're just doing something that's not physically touching them. So I felt like his comment really just made it more clear that, yeah, we are still doing something. And that's something that we kind of forget. My sister reminded me about that we are I'm like, oh, the universe will take care of it. The spirits take care of it, especially right now. Sending out love and light. And she did remind us that we are the physical beings. And that's what I talk about all the time, that we're picking up the trash, that we're helping other people, that we're taking care of our community, and that is part of that whole as we're here on the 3D, but that we can project and change things out in the 3D, especially as we have more and more people all going towards that direction. That's something that's been super exciting for me. Not just the spiritual people. There was a Orisha priest I just had met at this Black Wellness event, and he was saying the same thing, how important it is that we are projecting what we want into the universe and that we are getting control of ourselves, which is something that I talk about a lot with your chakras. We'll have a whole show on that, I'm sure. But that you're working on your fear, your shame, and your self-control, because those are the first 3 chakras. Those are the things that are most likely like not allowing you to project what you want into the world. And instead you're projecting your fear, your shame, your lack of self-control. Those are the things you're projecting in the world because those things are taking over, and how important it is to get to the heart space before we start manifesting things out into the universe. And one of the things I also hear a lot is I hear a lot of people talk about that, hey, the universe, it's just trying to keep us down, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, are you sure? Because there was a movie that I'm going to have Nat play in just a moment that was all over the world. It was all about waking up. And then, there's tons of Disney movies. One of my most favorite one, Mulan, was about, whether or not she should go to the sea or stay there with her family. And that was a total wake up movie. That was, you see the father has stayed and how angry that man is. He's trying to do a good job, but he's internally not happy because he wanted to go to the ocean too, but then his friend died, right? So he stays and he does a safe thing, but his daughter is unable to deny the call of the ocean, and she does the thing that makes her super happy, right? And then Maui, of course, is trying to please everybody else instead of being happy himself, so he's unhappy. So the fact that people talk about the world isn't trying to wake you up, I'm like, are you sure? Because Earth, Wind, and Fire, Michael Jackson, they don't really care about us, Man in the Mirror, like, are you sure the universe isn't trying to wake you up, or are you sure you're just busy doing the daily stuff? And so the universe is trying to wake you up. It just needs to grab you just a little bit. That's probably why you're here listening to me. Hey, Nat, you want to play that movie that tried to wake it up the whole world?
Tandy?
You already know if I'm going to take it?
Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why we.
Starting my spiritual journey in my early 20s and learning this concept absolutely changed the game for me, and I want to share it with you now. 60 seconds, you're going to love this. So when it came to becoming a better human, this game-changing concept is what turned it all around for me, and it's the concept of what is called morphic resonance, where each individual species draws from a collective consciousness, a collective memory, and adds to that collective consciousness through its experiences and through what it projects into the world. So every time we have or choose a new experience, we draw from the collective memory of all, and we add to the collective memory of all. So this means, 1, we're all connected, and number 2, every time you do something good, it affects everybody. Now here's where it gets really cool. If I teach a group of monkeys that are segregated on an island a new skill, and I get them to repeat that more than 3 times, the monkeys on the nearby island will naturally pick up the same skill. What? Like, that is mind-blowing, but it's true. So here's what that means for you. Every time you choose to grow in some way, learn a new skill, and you repeat that growth or you repeat that skill over and over and over again, what you're doing is you're affecting the collective consciousness of everybody in humanity. Everybody gets affected. This is why the pursuit of greatness is so important. So be conscious of what it is you're learning and how it is that you're actually growing. And don't give up. Why? Because we're all counting on each other, and we're all counting on you. Don't get disheartened. Keep your focus. And remember, practice doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent. Like, follow, share, and remember, live your life inspired.
What he's talking about is something that was hinted at by, I said, Frederick Fagan, and he's not, Frederick Fagan, the video, I'll post a link to that too. He's not quite getting it yet. He's got the idea that we are a quantum being, and our body is full of quantum, pieces. But what he's adding into there, and what the spiritual people are talking about, is that then I am a quantum being, just one quantum, and all the humans are one quantum, 8.2 billion of this quantum. And then we each are part of the collective of the human consciousness. And then each species has their own consciousness, right? The trees, the butterflies, the fish, they each have their own consciousness, and that's the web consciousness of the earth. And then the web consciousness of the earth is the web consciousness of the universe. I mean, of the solar system. And the solar system is the web consciousness as a quantum consciousness inside of the universe. And then, man, guys, I actually have the list of how many billions of planets there are. But before that, I want to show you this really cool video from Neil deGrasse Tyson. So watch this video, see how cool the solar system is, and then I'm going to tell you how many of these there are.
Right now you think you're standing still, but you're actually moving at 2.1 million kilometers per hour through space. Most people think the Earth orbits the sun in a nice circular path, but that's completely wrong. In reality, we're spiraling through space in a corkscrew motion, dragged along by the sun as it hurtles through the Milky Way at 828,000 kilometers per hour. If you were to mark your exact position in space right now and return in 24 hours, you'd be 57.3 million kilometers away from that spot. And that's just our galaxy. The entire Milky Way is moving at 2.1 million kilometers per hour toward the mysterious Great Attractor, a gravitational anomaly so powerful that it's pulling thousands of galaxies toward it. And we have no idea what it is. So the next time you feel like you haven't gone anywhere, just remember you're on a cosmic roller coaster, moving through the universe at speeds your brain can't even comprehend.
Yeah, I actually don't know how to even say the number of universes. I wrote it down. I was like, wow, did you practice how to say this word? Okay, so I can't. So the amount of universes, the amount of planets there are, there's 8.2 billion people. There's enough planets for us to each have to visit over 30,000 planets each for us to visit all the planets there are right now. And most universes have 2 planets. And so it has 12 zeros behind it. It's one. I don't know what that number is. I actually probably should look it up. But that's how many planets there are. I mean, how many universes there are. So the theory that we are, what I was talking about, that we are, this universe is one universe in a whole bunch of universes. And the idea that they talk about that this universe is just for you, right? That I'm not even probably in your universe. I'm probably in some other universe, and that we are just meeting because our vibrations are working at this moment. In fact, I didn't even write this right now, right? I wrote this like 3 or 4 days ago. It's something I've been talking about for weeks. And some of you aren't even watching it live. Some of you are watching it at whatever time you want to because of our amazing magic technology that allows us to do that. And so just the understanding of where we are, that nothing is quite what we're seeing, and the scientists are saying it now as well, that this is a projection universe. And once we all realize it's a projection universe, and we start getting to the point where we realize that we are the projectors, that we're one of the things that the energy is coming out of to project onto the world, then the world will start getting better. It'll instantly start getting better for you if you start doing that. Start working, like I said, on those chakras, the fear, the shame, your self-control. Those 3 things will instantly start making your world better. But the idea that the universe is moving, the solar system itself is moving through the universe, is also something that